what created the universe.
I didn't ask you.
I don't have the
I didn't ask
answers
you who
in the
created the
palm of
universe.
my hand.
Listen to what I'm saying very clearly.
Listen, knowledge are the tools that people accept to live in their lives. That's what they believe in.
You believe
what they accept.
You believe in
as
knowledge?
true.
You believe in knowledge?
I believe in knowledge, but it's always flawed. You can never be 100% certain that something exists and something is absolute true, because there's always ways to debunk.
Well, there are many things which are absolutely. For example, there is many things which you can say is absolutely true.
You can't say anything is absolute.
Do you exist?
I don't know.
Seriously?
I can't say for.
You can't even know that you exist.
Listen, if
that means you're not. That means
there's
you're
a
not
philosophy by Descartes, which is I think, thus I exist. Which
Sorry, say again?
I think, thus I exist. You ever heard of that?
Yes, it's a philosophical.
It's a philosophical
mumbo jumbo.
Of course, mumbo jumbo.
It is philosophical mumbo
It's
jumbo.
philosophy mumbo jumbo.
No, not all philosophy. Certain philosophy is mumbo jumbo.
Why is it mumbo jumbo?
I'll tell you why. Because if you don't even know that you exist or you don't exist,
well, I believe I
then
exist.
what is your value? What is your value? Everything that you say, everything that you conceive is valueless if you don't exist. You see what I mean?
One thing is to accept that as a possibility. Okay. Another thing is to deny possibilities because you just can't perceive.
No, I'm not saying we deny possibilities.
Yes, you are.
What I'm
saying,
no, I'm not at all. Not at all. When did I deny possibilities? What I'm telling you is this: is nothing in existence. Is that a possibility at all?
How did we even come to this conversation? We were talking about consciousness and
we
how
are.
it defines society.
Because all this is important.
Listen,
in
you
order
call,
for
you call philosophy mumbo jumbo.
No, I didn't say all philosophy.
You called
no. Wait.
You called the philosophical
do not put words in my mouth. I said certain things.
I think, thus I exist. You call that mumbo
I said
jumbo.
certain things.
How can I argue with you? If you call that mumbo jumbo, if you can't even think about that, how can I argue with you about this?
You know, how can I argue with a person who doesn't know if he exists even?
It's not an absolute. You can't believe that anything is
there
an
are many
absolute.
things
It's
that are
100%.
absolute. Many things which are absolute.
No, they're not.
I think you exist and I exist is an absolute. I think the shape of the earth, yes, is an absolute. Unless you think like other people that it is a flat earth. There are many things in this world which you can say is absolute.
Then okay. If you know absolute things, then you are omniscient.
No.
Yes. If
you know what omniscient means?
Yes.
What does it mean?
One who sees all.
One who knows all.
Knows all. Exactly.
Yes. Do I know all?
Yeah. Sees, knows all.
No. There's a difference. Do I know all? I can't be omniscient.
Well, if you know things that are certain.
No. But that is not omniscience. You have misdefined the logic of this particular term. Going back to my question, where do you think the universe came from? If you say it is nothing, then you're basically the most illogical person, because you're a person who says nothing doesn't even exist. If something doesn't exist even, how can it give rise to something as grand as the universe, which includes you and me in it? So the only other conclusion, and correct me if I'm wrong, based on the discussion we're having, the only other conclusion is that there has to be something which gives rise to the universe, which gives rise to everything.
Which I assume is God.
You assume?
I assume that's what you want to say.
No, don't tell me what I want to say. I want to know what you think.
No, I've answered you. I don't know. What's your answer to that?
No, you didn't answer this.
Yes, I did.
Okay, let me ask you the question
I told you
again.
I don't know.
Yeah, now you did. So the question to what the universe, who created the universe, you're saying you don't know.
Okay, answer me.
That's fine.
Go ahead.
I believe that it is not nothing. I believe that it has to be an intelligent being.
And how did that intelligent being
Can I finish? You didn't even let me finish.
Okay, go ahead, please.
I said two terms and you already
Go ahead, finish.
An intelligent designer, an intelligent being, an intelligent entity, yes, brought everything into existence. And the reason for that is because I don't think nothing can give rise to something. Yes, so that is already out. I don't think the universe, which is non-sentient, you believe the universe has consciousness? It's a question to you.
No,
because it's important for me to know what you believe about the universe. Do you think the universe has consciousness just like the way you do have consciousness? No, it doesn't. So it cannot give rise to itself, because it doesn't even have consciousness. Yes? So if I tell this cup created itself, that will be illogical, because it does not have consciousness or the ability to even think, let alone create something out of nothing. Okay? The third thing is, it did not get created. Sorry, the first thing is nothing created it. It did not create itself. So the only other thing is, there has to be someone or something what created all this. That is the only logical, whether you want to call it philosophical argument, that is conceivably logical. Do you agree? And how? No? Okay, give me another alternative. Go on.
No, I'm not giving you any other alternatives because I want
Well, if
to
you
know.
say I don't know and you say I don't...
Listen.
Yeah, go on.
That's what you've been doing. You've been asking me questions. Now let me ask you a
Okay, go
question.
on, ask me a question.
How did that intelligent being come to pass? How did it start existing?
Very good question. I believe that being is the first cause. It's uncreated. Yes? No one. It is basically something that is not dependent on anyone or anything. It is not contingent upon something else. Unlike everything else in the universe, it is contingent on something that comes prior to it for it to be created. So that being, which I believe is God, which you must have figured out by now, is someone who is intelligent, someone who is capable of creating, someone who is uncreated, someone who is the first cause, and someone who is the one who's got all the power and the ability to do and create all this creation that comes into existence. And if you can think of an alternative to that, then please lay it on the table so we can discuss it.
You want me to tell you an alternative to, for example, saying that the animals and the living beings that exist now haven't been created by an intelligent being?
Go on, tell me.
You know that 99.9% of all species that ever existed on Earth are extinct.
So what?
If an intelligent being created those species, why did it just destroy them like that?
Why not? It's his creation. Who are you to tell him
why?
when and where?
Where's the reason?
The reason for that is
Did they
because...
sin?
Okay, let me
Did
ask
they
you.
do something
Let me ask you
wrong?
this. When the species get destroyed, do new species also appear?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not completely annihilation. For example...
Sometimes it was.
Listen. For example, in his wisdom, maybe he doesn't want the humans to live alongside the dinosaurs. Yes? For the well-being of both. Yes? Because you'll end up like Jurassic Park otherwise. And God doesn't want that. So you see, when you question, now you're questioning the wisdom of God as to why he does that, which is actually a good thing because now we are making progress. So you have somehow already, I'm not saying you have completely, somehow accepted that this is the only way that we could have come into being. What, you don't have any other alternatives?
No, I'm asking about your way of thinking. It doesn't mean
No,
I
now
accept
you're
your way of
questioning about
thinking.
why God did this and that.
Yes.
You see, the first point is
Yes,
to
because
acknowledge that God exists.
No,
And then you question him whether he did
yes.
this or not.
You see, that's the thing. I'm getting into your way of thinking so I can understand it, so I can tell you why it doesn't make sense. Because,
What doesn't make sense?
if I always keep to my way of thinking, we will never make any progress. I'll tell you.
No.
this is
Why
wrong,
do you think it
you'll
doesn't
tell me
make
this is
sense?
wrong.
Why do you think God doesn't make sense? Because you don't have an alternative. So the only other alternative
Because
that makes sense is God.
Christ or Yahweh were not the first gods.
How do you know that? It's because they were called with
Look,
different names.
We're back to zero.
Listen,
because
no,
we have
no.
historical records that there have been other religions that existed before them.
I have no issues with other religions. All you're telling me now is that God did exist before. Yes, maybe they were not called Allah or Yahweh or whatever it is. That's all you're telling me. But the point still remains. God
I mean,
existed.
religions existed before. I'm not saying
No.
gods existed.
I still have no doubt with that. Sorry, no problem with that. Whether religions existed before or whether gods were called with different names before, that is not the point I'm trying to make it. The point I'm trying to make is that there is an intelligent being out there who is God. Yes, whether the people believed as one God or multiple gods or called him Allah or called him Yahweh is besides the point. The point is this: there is a higher being who created us all. Do you understand? That is the point I'm going to get to. Because you see, as a human being, you have certain things within you, like your DNA. It is something that is hard-coded in every human being, in every animal, in every organism out there. The DNA code decides to your characteristics, yes, as a human being, and as a male, and as a female, and the color of your eyes, and the color of your hair, everything is pre-programmed, hardwired in there. And you tell me that just came by itself, without anyone actually putting that program within you?
Man, it didn't just come out on itself. There were years and centuries and millennia of evolution.
How do you know that? This is speculation. How do you know that?
You know the amphibians. The amphibians. The amphibians are basically frogs and those kinds of creatures.
I know what amphibians are.
They,
What about
yeah,
them?
they can live underwater and they can live on the surface. Do you know a kind of fish? I forgot the name of that fish, but it can come out of the water and it can use its, limbs to move around on top of Earth.
The point is,
My point is that's proof of evolution. We are seeing different links that link, fishes, mammals, and in the middle between them, there's a fish.
how do you know that is evolution? How do you know? Maybe God programmed them to walk on the earth. Maybe God programmed those amphibians to live in the water and
Maybe
in the earth.
that's a possibility.
Wait.
But that's
But
the thing.
is, you
I don't
see-
consider anything
No,
as
wait,
an absolute truth.
wait. The DNA module that is the DNA that is present in every living organism, yes, is something which is so complex. Yes, you see, before the scientists were saying that maybe only a fraction of the DNA is something that is useful. 90% of it is useless. Today they've come to the understanding that 90% is not useless. That junk DNA is something which also has other functionalities which they are coming to terms. There are many places on Earth which still haven't been discovered. There are many places underwater which still haven't been discovered. So from all, listen, I'm only talking about the Earth. Yes, the Earth is a very small planet in our solar system, and the solar system is a very small part of our galaxy, and the galaxy is a very small part of our universe. It's in fact a small fraction, like a grain of sand in a big desert like Sahara Desert. It's a speck. Yes? No, we are talking about the speck within the speck. Us human beings have only discovered the speck, yes, from the entire universe. So do not say that there is no possibility out there of God. Okay, so you believe there is a God out there?
No, I think there's a possibility.
Are you an agnostic then? You're not an atheist.
Okay,
At least we have made progress.
let me. I never said I was an atheist.
Okay, my apologies. Are you an
It's all
agnostic
right.
or
No, but
an
listen,
atheist? Because we need to
listen.
understand.
You gave me the example of the grain of sand, the speck inside of speck inside of the speck. That's a very good example. Now, I tell you, seeing that we humans only know a speck inside of a speck inside of a speck, and you and I as people only know a little fraction of what humanity knows overall, which is, I don't even know how to quantify that little kind of amount of information. How can you be absolutely certain that God exists and the God you believe in is the right God that exists? If you only have that little
I've already explained this to
how
you.
can you know?
I've already explained to you that logically it's impossible for something to come into existence from nothing. So the other alternative is that there has to be something. And in order for that something to be of such power and such ability to create all this, that something has to be non-contingent. It has to be independent of everything else. In order for it to be logically to make sense to you, that God, what I call as God, is someone who is beyond our comprehension. However, we don't have to understand God fully. All we have to understand is that there is something out there, someone out there, who has designed all this, who has designed from the minutest things in our existence, yes, like for example the DNA that we have, yes, the code of life that we have. I don't think that came from nothing. And neither do I think that evolution is something, has got the intelligence within it to bring about such complexity within us, and to such precise detail, to such precise ability, that it defines you and me as to who we are, the color of our eyes, the hair, how we basically will look in the future within our progeny, and so on. This is something I don't think comes about by non-intelligent being. And like you said, the universe doesn't even have consciousness. How do you think all this come into existence if it doesn't even have consciousness? I think there is a designer behind all this. And this intelligent designer is someone who designed all this. I don't think it's by chance. It is something that has been designed for a specific reason, by a specific entity, not by chance. And if anyone says otherwise, then they are only shooting themselves in the foot, because they cannot tell me that nothing has caused all this, or all this is by accident. You see, accident is something that happens chaotically. There is not an order in chaos. But I see order in the universe that we live in. Yes? For example, the society, the very society that you live in, has some sort of order. Every person has an innate nature to
Society
identify.
has an order.
Yes.
Order in society is necessary for humans to survive. That's why they made up that order. That's why they created their ideologies, their cultures, their way of living.
How
That's
did
why
it
they
come
created
about?
religion to be a tool in surviving as a society. You know, that's where our conversation started. That's what I really wanted to talk about. Society itself. Society itself.
but you're talking about
the
a being.
mentality of people, the consciousness, the conscience
Where did it
of
come
people
from?
is their
Where do you
God.
think all that came from?
It's look, people made it up to
No. Your
live
consciousness.
better with
Where did it come from?
To be able, my conscience.
where did it come from?
Where did it come from?
Yeah.
It's two things: nature and nurture. Progressive nurture by generations and generations of humans was put in their nature.
I don't think you understood my question.
Humans evolved because they were
Nothing
creating
to do
a
with
society
evolution.
to live in.
Shall I tell you why? Let me ask you in a different way. Let me rephrase the question. Do you think your consciousness is material or immaterial?
Do you mean immaterial?
You know what material means?
Human thought is basically a bunch of electric discharges
it's not.
in their brain. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
You're talking about brain.
Their memories, their
Wait, you're talking about
electric discharges in the
You're-
brain. That's why you can't.
No. Your electromagnetism within you or within your brain or whatever it is, that is not what your consciousness is. If you think the changes that happen in an MRI, when you see the changes happening in the brain, is what your consciousness is, then you are completely mistaken as to what the consciousness really is.
How do you know what consciousness really is?
Okay, let me ask you what thought is.
You know,
What is thought? Thought is something that
what is who?
your thoughts.
Thoughts, okay.
Yes. Do you think your thoughts is something that a computer or a machine created by scientists is able to decipher?
To decipher.
Yeah. Like, can anyone say what you're thinking?
Well, not yet, at least.
How
That
do you
kind
know
of
it will-
technology hasn't been invented yet. At least as far as I know.
This is where I go to material or immaterial. Because even electromagnetism, even electricity, yes, is not immaterial. So let me ask you again, is your consciousness material or immaterial?
Do you know what an AI is?
Yeah, artificial intelligence.
Exactly.
What is that got to
You
do
know,
with this?
nowadays AI is rather flawed, really. It's not very intelligent. It kind of has the intelligence of a toddler. If you just program it, and it won't be very intelligent. But it's evolving. With times, humans are creating better AI, more intelligent AI, which, if it will become very intelligent, it won't be that different from humans. In fact, it will be more intelligent.
You
than
think it
humans.
has consciousness? AI?
Consciousness, self-awareness, you mean?
Yeah, consciousness.
A conscience. It won't in the beginning.
How do you know it will in the end?
I don't know. Maybe it
Even
will.
the
If we develop it enough, it might have. You know, there's many.
You know what? Artificial intelligence basically boils down to a bunch of programs within a particular machine or a particular computer. Yes?
Yeah.
All it does is you give it a set of input and it gives you a set of output based on the program within it. That's all it is.
Humans are not transcendent to that. Humans are kind of like that, except that they're much more
Humans are,
developed.
for example, if a human child who has not been trained, yes, is given a certain task for its age. Say even a newborn baby. How does it know that it has to breastfeed? And how to breastfeed? How does it know?
Instinct.
Based on what?
Based on evolution, on human evolution.
Yeah,
You
which is what?
Animals know that they need to go to that specific spot to feed on milk.
Which is what?
That's instinct.
Which is what? Who trained it?
That's like programming.
No, who programmed it? That's a good point you made.
It's
That.
the
Who
species.
programmed it?
Look, who programmed
No,
it?
because you said it's like programming. Who programmed it? Because it's an artificial intelligence or even a computer, a one-day-old computer or one-day-old artificial intelligence machine with that capability. It's not something that just comes about from nowhere. The human beings still have to program it, still have to feed it information. Who fed information to that child or that baby kangaroo to suckle from his mother from day one? Who did? Who trained it?
Look, there's a difference. There's a big difference between nurture and between nature.
I know.
By nature, in this case, I mean instinct.
You know,
the
when
thing
you-
that
when you
the
use the
thing
term
that is
nature-
hardwired in your head. Who programmed?
Yeah, who hardwired it?
Who programmed the deer to start walking a few minutes after
Exactly.
it was
Who did?
born?
Yeah. Tell me who.
But humans can't do that.
No.
The human
Hold on,
children
hold on,
can't do
hold on.
that. Why
I
is
didn't say
that?
they were all sick.
Because the human brain is much more developed and it has far more potential than the brain of the deer.
You're missing the point.
Humans are not led by their instinct. They're led by
You're missing the point. Shall I tell you why? Because just like you said, it's hardwired and it's programming a deer to do X, Y, and Z from day one. Okay. My question still remains: who programmed it?
It's evolution. That's what I believe in.
Why does it have to be a who? I mean, what you've been talking about, he agrees with you and I agree with you on so many things. But the bit that I don't agree with is when you say it's a he or it's a god. I mean, why does it have to be? What if it's a force? What if it's an energy? What if it's
How long have you been standing here?
I mean,
a while.
A while?
Yeah,
okay.
a while.
Just like I asked him the question,
Yeah.
do you think something created the universe or nothing?
I think an energy created the universe.
Energy is something,
I'm
right?
a spiritual person. I believe in the
Fair
universe.
enough.
I believe in
Do you
the
believe energy is something?
But you put a label on it, which is called God. And when you put that label on it, you create division.
Well, you called it a label called energy.
Well, no.
Same thing, it's just semantics
Well,
now.
whichever way you want to look
That's
at
what
it.
I'm saying. You see, you put a label called energy.
There's some truth in everything you're saying.
No, hold on.
There's an element of
Hold on.
truth.
Shall I tell you why?
There's not 100%.
Shall I tell you why energy doesn't work? Do you know the first law of thermodynamics? No, because if you don't know that, then when you deal with energy, yes.
All right, let's call it consciousness then.
No, consciousness.
Yes.
Consciousness is not energy.
Consciousness.
Consciousness.
Well, if consciousness
No one defines
existed
consciousness as energy.
before the creation of anything,
Yes,
then you are agreeing
because
with
you see,
him.
energy is something
You're
that
agreeing
can be
with the
defined.
existence of God.
Energy has a particular definition in the.
None of the people here, not including you and myself or this gentleman here, none of us are that smart and that clever to be able to say factually that this or that is God or God created this or that.
Well, give me
It's
an
a belief.
alternative.
It's a belief. It's not a fact.
Well, I can say the same thing about energy. The belief that you have, and you don't even know the first law of thermodynamics.
All the stress, all the division in society is caused by people saying this God said this or that God said that, and these are the rules you have to live your life by. That's the only difference. If you take energy, physics, if you take consciousness, it's here. Look, this is God. This planet is God.
Can I ask
Where
you?
we're standing
Can I ask you
today.
something?
Go ahead.
Do you believe consciousness is material or immaterial?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay, if you don't want to have a discussion,
It's both.
then I will have it with this gentleman because at
both.
least he was answering the questions. And in order for us to have a communication and to get to know each other within society, we have to communicate. Of
course.
Yes, and it's also important that we are sincere with each other.
Of course.
Yes, and that's the reason I would respect a person who tells me that I don't know, rather than evading questions which are crucial to this discussion. Yes, because you see, in the first law of thermodynamics, it basically states that energy is something which is neither created or destroyed within a closed environment.
changed.
Within a closed environment. You see, the closed environment that we are talking about, for example, if you take a cylinder of oxygen, there is energy within it. Yes? And there is energy within our universe.
Yes. It's only changed. It doesn't become nothing.
It goes from one state to another state. But the important point here is that within a closed environment.
Yes.
Before the universe existed, there was no closed environment. So what form was energy in? Now this is a crucial question you need to think about if you're thinking about energy. Because many people bring up this point about energy without understanding what energy really is. Because you see, energy and matter are something which people say are existing within our universe. But the point remains, what existed before the universe existed? What form was energy in? You see, these are the questions neither scientists nor people like you who believe in energy are unable to answer. And that is why I say God. If you don't like the label God, call it an intelligent designer. If you don't like call that,
fine
many
with the
people use the
label
term
of God.
nature.
It's not the
You know, many
thing
people
I'm
call the
against.
name, like the way you said nature and nurture. This nature, to me, is something that, like the terms you use, hardwired, programmed. The little deer which is able to walk, an elephant which is massive when it is born, yes, but is able to stand up in a few hours or something and walk. This is something which is nature, but to me, that is something that is hard-coded by nature, or rather I would say by God himself, programmed within that animal or within that human child who's able to have the information within it to suckle from his mother from day one.
Okay.
To be able to cry when it needs something, when it's basically spoiled the nappies, it is able to cry and inform the person who's taking care of it.
That's a good example, because
see what I mean?
sometimes something weird happens and children don't cry when they're born.
But you're talking about exceptions, my friend.
Sometimes
I'm
it
talking
happens.
I'm
Well,
talking about
if it's
general-
so hardwired, then why does it happen?
Okay, you know something about, you know what exception means? An exception is something which is not something which is found generally. For example, there are many human beings who have a photographic memory.
Yes.
You know about this person? He basically flew in a helicopter.
I know about
and
him.
he's able to, just by looking at the city, he's able to draw it.
I know. If I'm
Every
not
single
mistaken,
detail of it.
he was an artist, and
He had autism.
He had autism.
Yeah.
And
He had autism, and
be-
this is
be-
so. This is what I'm saying. Look, there are
of that, he had
exceptions in
that
everything, but exceptions do not make a rule. But generally speaking, like I said, every organism has DNA, has pre-programmed information within it, and this is something which we, as human beings, have to acknowledge and accept that it did not come about by chance.
Exceptions don't make the rule, but they make it obvious that the rule is not an absolute.
What do you mean rule is not absolute? Of course, rule is absolute.
No, it's if there are exceptions, that means that the rule is not.
Which
an
exceptions are you
absolute.
talking about?
For example, the baby not crying.
Yeah, what about it?
That's an exception.
To what?
To the baby crying when he's.
What is the point you're trying to drive at?
I'm trying to explain to you that anything that you see as absolute truth is not as absolute as you
So
think.
you're telling me there's no absolute truth at all.
There isn't.
So what is the point of this discussion?
Well, the point
Because
of
you
this
will never,
discussion
you will
is
never
it's
ever
probability.
in
What
your,
is more
in your
probable
mindset
to be
nothing can be
successful?
true. Is that right?
Nothing can be
true.
absolutely true.
Why would you say that?
Well, because everything that you say or what you think might be wrong.
Okay, let me ask you.
There's a small possibility.
Let me
always
ask
a
you.
small
If you see
possibility.
something with your eyes, yes, and hear with your acknowledge with your five senses,
Okay.
yes. If you do not even trust your senses, then whom are you going to trust?
Nobody.
Then you wouldn't trust anyone in life.
That's how
you're going
faith
to live
exists.
you're going to live your
That's
entire
where
life
faith comes from.
doubting everything.
Of course.
Then you're going to become super, what do you call that? You're going to be skeptical about everything.
I know, but look, that's
And if you're going to,
different.
that is how
There's
you're
a
going to
big
live your life,
difference.
you're going to have trouble everywhere.
No, but listen. There's a big difference between that and what I actually think. It's that it's okay, it's okay to believe in things. Because if you keep saying, okay, this is not true, everything is a lie, you really can't live. You're right about that.
But that's what you're saying.
No, that's not
me.
what I'm saying.
Yes,
What
you are.
I'm-
You're saying
no.
there's nothing as absolute truth.
Yes, you
It
don't
goes
need.
again.
Look, you don't need to believe in absolute truth. You need to. You can believe in things.
you need
but
to believe
you
certain
need to
things are absolutely
always.
true.
You need to always accept the possibility that what you see as the absolute truth might be wrong, or else you lose complete.
No, but you
lose your
said
perception.
nothing can be absolutely true.
Yes.
So what is the point of you even gaining knowledge? Why would you go to college or university if everything that is taught to you is absolutely false? If it's not absolutely true,
Truth is
then what is it?
perception. What is true to me might not be the truth that you see.
No, that's not
Now,
true. at all.
reality is something that people can't grasp because their senses are flawed. Their senses are not perfect.
Speak for yourself.
The eagle sees better than a human. The dog can smell better than a human. The deer can hear better than a human. If there's animals, if there's creatures who have much better senses than you in every single sense, every single quality that you have, how can you say that your senses don't lie to you? How can you say that what you see, what you hear, what you smell, what you taste is the absolute truth?
You know what you just told me? You just told me that the degree of hearing, the degree of sight is different in animals. You did not tell me anything other than that. What I'm
telling you that they are better in things
Wait a
than
minute.
we are.
I didn't say they were not better. However, in terms of intellect, we are better than the animals.
Yes.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Okay. The reason the animals do not have a library or a civilization, and they're still living in the wild,
Because they're stupid.
oh, come on, that is their life. So if you're going to judge an animal or a fish by its ability to fly, then the fish will always remain stupid.
Their evolution went in a different way.
Wait a minute.
The
It's got
deer
nothing.
evolved to have
No, it's got
horns,
nothing to do with
have
it.
fur.
It's got nothing
the
to do-
human has evolved to have a bigger intellect.
It's got nothing
Humans
to do with
don't have
evolution.
claws, they don't have horns,
on.
they don't have teeth.
It has got nothing.
Not sharp
It's
teeth.
got nothing to do with evolution, like the way you think it's evolution. Okay? Because what you just told me, it is something that you just heard from some Darwinists.
No, I didn't.
Yes? Well, somebody taught you, obviously.
Taught what? Evolution?
Yes.
Well, yeah, I looked it up,
Yes.
and I believe
And
it's
this is
true.
postulated by the Darwinists.
Well, you believe in things that have been taught to you about your God.
But I'm not
you
like
didn't
you.
Just come up
Look,
with
I'm
your
not like
God
you to
yourself.
say that everything is absolutely not true.
Well, of course not, because you're a dogmatic person. You believe in.
No, it's got nothing dogmatic. It's called realistic.
No.
I'm a realist in the sense that I believe certain things are true.
Who considers certain things to be absolute, to be unquestionable. That's what being a dogmatic person means.
Okay, so you question everything. Yes, even your existence.
To a certain degree,
listen.
yes. To a certain
even
degree.
your existence, you question.
To a certain
Yes,
degree.
whether you exist or not, you're not even sure of that.
Yes.
You're worse than a dogmatic person. Because the reason for that is because you don't even know your own existence is real or not. So for you to call someone dogmatic is basically pointless.
Why is it?
Why? Because you're not even certain of your own existence. So everything of value or not value within your life is something uncertain. Everything in your life is uncertain. Am I
What I
right?
think about myself and how I consider myself has absolutely nothing to do with what I actually am. I might consider myself to be the most intelligent person on earth, but I won't be. You know, I might
Because
consider.
you're uncertain about everything.
No.
Yes, you are.
No,
You said there was no something.
That is not the reason.
Okay, is there anything
it
you're
means
certain
that
about?
Your perception of yourself and your real self aren't exactly the same thing.
Let me ask you this.
They're different.
Let me ask you. Are you certain about anything in life?
Not 100% certain.
So nothing. That's what I mean.
You
Everything
need
in
to
your life.
always have the possibility that what you believe in might be wrong.
My
you know?
friend, listen to this.
If you don't have,
Listen,
if you
listen.
don't consider that
Listen.
possibility,
If you
you'll
think-
never learn
if you
anything.
think-
You just keep having
No,
the
that's
same
not-
ideals all your life.
I don't think you understand the difference between certainty and trying to believe. Because you somehow believe nothing in your life is certain 100%. Am I right? So in your life, you'll never be certain about everything. Or, sorry, anything. Forget about everything.
Okay, let me ask you a question.
Yeah, go on.
Do you think that human civilization has evolved from, for example, the Middle Ages until now? Do you think we have evolved?
The civilization.
In terms of, yes.
The civilization.
Yes, we have evolved.
Don't put words in my mouth. If you're asking me a question, allow me to
Okay,
answer.
go ahead.
Okay? So the civilization, when you say evolve, do you mean for the good or for the for the better or for the worse?
In terms of technology, for example.
Even technology. Look,
we evolved?
to me, technology is something. When you say it has evolved, to me, what is evolved mean? For example, have we become better people from the ancient times to today?